This is me. A kid growing up in the Midwest in the 80s and 90s, impeccable sense of fashion, I think you can tell. Some of my earliest, most clearest memories from that time are lying on my parents' floor looking at this big picture book of the Great Barrier Reef. And it would be years before I would even see the ocean for the first time, but it didn't matter. I was already hooked. For me, reefs were this sense of discovery and adventure and beauty all wrapped up into one, a way to get out and see the world. My name is Enochs. I'm a scientist with the U.S. government's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I'm the lead of the AOML Coral Program in Miami, Florida. And fulfilling that kid's dream of becoming a marine biologist, I have learned that coral reefs are so much more than I could have ever imagined. They are critical to life as we know it, and I want to take you there. Coral reefs are the rainforests of the sea. They exist as the highest concentration of biodiversity in all of our oceans. They are a veritable gold mine for bioprospectors. Incredible fish life. Schools around those structures supporting fisheries and feeding hundreds of millions of people worldwide, millions upon millions of families. Those same reef structures buffer our cities, buffer our coastlines from storm surge and wave energy, reducing flooding and coastal erosion. And I am happy to tell you that I am not the only one that really cares about coral reefs. Probably a couple of you in the audience tonight also care about reefs. And every year, people open up their pocketbooks just to experience them, spending money on boat charters and snorkeling, fancy gear, cameras, but also on restaurants, hotels, and flights. So what's that mean for us here in South Florida? It means that this thin line of reef that follows our coastline is responsible for $1.1 billion in tourism every year. It supports more than 71,000 jobs. This thin line of reef, well, it protects our cities to the tune of $650 million every year. Last year, this year, next year, every single year. And these numbers just get bigger and bigger as you head out into the rest of the US and into the rest of the world. Think about it. All of that value to us, to our society, this reef structure that provides all of those services is our infrastructure. No different than seawalls, no different than fishing fleets, no different than parks and tourist attractions. Reefs are our critical infrastructure. But the world has changed quite a bit since I was lying on the floor of my parents' house daydreaming about the Great Barrier Reef. Since we have been burning fossil fuels at a furious rate, and our Earth is warming. And this is a problem for all of us. This is particularly a problem for corals that live right on the edge of their temperature tolerances. And if it is too hot for too long, they bleach white and they die. And we measure the amount of stress that these corals experience as degree heating weeks because it takes temperature, degrees, and it takes time, weeks. We call this DHW if you're in the know. And now that you are in the know, I want to show you just how bad things have gotten. This is the amount of temperature stress coral reefs have experienced worldwide in the last 2 years. Focus on the tropics. Focus on the colors. At a DHW of 4, corals are bleaching. At 8, that bleaching is widespread across a reef. At 12, numerous species are bleaching all over the reef and dying. And at 20, we're talking about nothing less than catastrophic coral mortality. Look at how much purple is on this map. We have lost so much over the last 2 years. And this was the 4th global bleaching event. The first was only in 1998. So yeah, a lot has changed since I was a kid. The urgency, the magnitude of the problem have never been more clear. I'm going to give you an example. The summer before last, I jumped into the water at one of my long-term study sites, a beautiful reef called Chica Rocks in the Florida Keys. I was met with this. In a single month, every single coral was affected, bleached white. This was a veritable snowscape of bleaching. The soft corals, the sea fans, the sea whips, these are resilient species. They were so stressed out that they were disintegrating before our eyes. Imagine being so stressed that the flesh is just falling off of you. It was devastating, ecologically, personally, to me and to my colleagues. And this is on top of what we have already lost in Florida. The photo on the left is Grecian rocks. Beautiful coral has died. It's from the 70s. Beautiful coral has died, has eroded away into rubble and sand. With it, all that structure, with it, all that infrastructure, with it, all of those services that we rely on. Think of all that we have lost and all that we stand to lose. Now, I want to recognize this is a bit of a bummer of a talk. Stick with me, because this is where our emotional roller coaster starts to take a little bit of an upswing. Don't get me wrong, the situation is bad, but it is not too late to do something about it, that we have tools right now that we can use to get out of this mess. We have identified particularly strong corals, corals that are capable of dealing with this temperature stress. And we can bring these supercorals back to our lab, and we can get them to grow faster. I'm talking 10 times as fast, even more. And we can get them to reproduce, creating thousands and thousands of babies. And we can make them stronger still. People have termed my lab in Miami a coral gym, because we work our corals out. Every day, twice a day, we've hit them with high temperature, and then cool them down, let them chill out. And just like you would if you hit the gym every day, twice a day, no judgment, they toughen up. And we can put them back out on the reef and rebuild a resilient coral reef infrastructure. This is not fanciful science fiction. This isn't teleportation. This is science and technology used with purpose. So what is stopping us? Well, the scale of the problem, it ain't small. Even in Florida, we're dealing with 350 miles of reef. Imagine the millions and millions of corals. In Florida, we've set the goal at 10 million corals to be outplanted, relying in large part on these land-based nurseries. And maybe you imagine this already, but it takes a lot of work to grow a coral in a lab. Among other things, we've got to clean them a lot. Algae can grow on them and they can get smothered. And so I'm not kidding you when I tell you the way that we usually do this is with toothbrushes. Imagine the thousands of interns sitting there, don't forget the thousands of toothbrushes, sitting there to clean your 10 million corals. It's a lot. Right now, our estimates for how much it costs to grow a coral to a little less than an inch, 2-centimeter diameter, is $150. Can anyone here do that math for me? $150 times 10 million corals. Bingo, $1.5 billion. And that is a drop in the bucket when we consider infrastructure, but in the world of coral reef research, that is a ton of money, many times the annual federal budget for all corals throughout the entire United States. So what is the solution? Well, the solution is something that we all rely on every single day. Your Amazon packages, your cars, all delivered, all produced with the help of automation. It allows us to scale and drive down costs. And in industry, it's commonplace. You gotta do it or you can't keep up. But in the field of coral reef research, this is bleeding edge stuff. And in my lab, we are building these robotic systems right now that allow us to scale our efforts by orders of magnitude. We've started with stress testing, but now we're building in systems that allow us to clean these corals, to feed these corals, to track these corals, to manipulate these corals. This is cool stuff. This is stuff we are doing now. So we can cut that $1.5 billion into something that's more manageable. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about getting rid of a single job. We still need all the jobs that we have, likely more. But what I'm talking about is being able to increase our impact using our workforce to actually be able to attain our goals with understandable budgets. Now, hopefully, I have most of you on board by now, right? You recognize this value of coral reefs. You recognize that we can do something about it. But there's always one. There's always one that's focused on money. How are you going to make money off of this? How am I going to pay for this? And I hear you, because these are actually really good questions. But here's the thing, our governments spend money on infrastructure. Seawalls, beach renourishment, clean water. In Florida, we've spent billions of dollars already on Everglades restoration. And we're embarking on Mission Iconic Reefs, the single largest reef restoration effort ever attempted in the US. But it's not just governments. Insurance companies want to mitigate, offset their coastal risk. Ecotourism companies want to bring in tourists to see these corals. Construction companies need to offset their environmental impacts. So who's going to sell them corals? Who's going to make money off of this? And so I see this very near, very tangible, very accessible future with warehouses and technology producing massive amounts of corals to rebuild our infrastructure. I see incredible opportunity for public and private partnerships, for profitable businesses that are rebuilding our critical coral reef infrastructure. So if you take three things away from this talk, know that we can use technology to build resilient corals. We can use automation to scale our solutions to meet the magnitude of the challenge. And know that our critical coral reef infrastructure is imperiled. But it is not too late to do something about it. The clock is ticking and the time to act is now.